What is the most important punch in boxing? Not the hook, not the uppercut, it's the jab. Why does this seemingly simple punch, of all things, decide victory or defeat? Why can some boxers control entire fights with just a jab, without taking risks? And why does a perfect jab not only destroy the rhythm, but also the opponent's courage? Today we're going to look at exactly that, starting with a man who elevated the jab to an art form. Top 1. Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather's jab was no ordinary lead hand punch. It was an instrument of control. Sharp, versatile, and usable from almost any position, Mayweather used the jab not just for setup, but as a standalone weapon. Whether from a high or low guard, his jab precisely hit the head and body, forcing opponents to constantly react. His jab to the body was particularly underestimated. With it, he maintained distance, stopped forward movements, and took the air out of his opponent early. This punch allowed him to stay safe while still consistently inflicting damage. It was a jab that dictated tempo, calmed fights, and simultaneously created psychological pressure. What made Mayweather's jab so dangerous wasn't raw power, but timing and accuracy. It came without warning, barely telegraphed, and landed exactly when the opponent thought they were safe. That's precisely how Mayweather gained control. Round after round, fight after fight. Was his jab spectacular? Maybe not. But was it efficient, intelligent, and career-defining? Absolutely. And that's exactly why Floyd Mayweather's jab is among the best in boxing history. Top 2. Gennady Golovkin. Gennady Golovkin's jab was anything but an ordinary lead hand punch. In the middleweight division, it was considered one of the hardest jabs ever thrown. This jab served not just as a setup, it was a true punching weapon. Golovkin knocked opponents down with his jab alone, caused cuts, and stopped attacks right at the outset. What made it so dangerous was the way he used it. From a high guard, without a large wind-up motion, the jab came direct, explosive, and hardly predictable. Opponents couldn't read it, couldn't time it, and most importantly, couldn't ignore it. Every single jab carried weight and consequences. Golovkin used this punch to completely control the fight. He determined distance, tempo, and rhythm, while the opponent was forced to constantly remain on the defensive. With every jab, he built pressure, both physically and mentally. How many boxers can claim their jab was their most dangerous punch? And how many opponents took a step back just because of it? For Golovkin, that was exactly the reality. Top 3. Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes called himself the owner of the best jab in heavyweight history, and it's hard to disagree with him. His jab was long, hard, and uncompromising. It served simultaneously as a distance gauge and a punch that inflicted real damage. Hardly any opponent could evade his jab without losing balance. What made Holmes's jab special was the combination of reach, timing, and snap. He threw it with a quick, whipping impulse that snapped heads back and stopped attacks immediately. Every jab came precisely, often exactly at the moment the opponent wanted to advance. This is how Holmes controlled the pace of the fight, without taking unnecessary risks. This jab dictated the rhythm over rounds. Opponents were forced to adapt, while Holmes remained calm, efficient, and dominant. It wasn't a spectacular punch, but a mercilessly effective one. How do you defeat a boxer whose jab already decides the fight? And what's left for an opponent when even the first step forward is immediately punished? Precisely these questions made Larry Holmes's jab so legendary. Top 4. Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis's jab was a punch of dominance, long, hard, and controlling. He used it to keep smaller heavyweights at bay and deny them any opportunity to get into an infight. This jab wasn't just a mere probing punch. It set clear boundaries and made it unmistakably clear who controlled the space in the ring. What made Lewis's jab particularly dangerous was its impact. Even thrown as a setup, it had knockout potential. Opponents who tried to work through his jab immediately paid a high price for it. Lewis dictated not only the distance, but also the tempo of the entire fight with this punch. Whether as a tactical tool or as a starting point for his heavy combinations, the jab was the key to his dominance. It forced opponents to act cautiously, make mistakes, and submit to the rhythm Lewis dictated. How do you attack a man whose jab alone is already dangerous? And how does a fight change when every approach is immediately stopped? That's exactly where the power of Lennox Lewis's jab lay. Top 5. Lyndon Arthur. Lyndon Arthur's jab is perhaps less famous than some other names on this list, but its effectiveness is undeniable. Fast, long, and used with exceptional consistency, the jab forms the foundation of his entire fighting style. Arthur relies on it to control distance and rhythm, and he hardly ever gives up on this punch. Particularly striking is the way he whips his jab from a low guard. This makes it hard to read, and it often comes unexpectedly. Opponents can't find a clear moment to counter, because the jab is constantly present and dictates the flow of the fight. Both offensively and defensively, this punch is the heart of his approach in the ring. Arthur uses the jab not for individual highlights, but as a continuous weapon. He keeps the opponent busy, forces them to hesitate, and thereby creates the necessary safety for himself. Precisely this consistency makes his jab so effective. How do you fight a boxer who never stops jabbing? And what happens when every attempt to get closer is immediately interrupted? Exactly here lies the strength of Lyndon Arthur's jab. Top 6. Marvin Hagler. Marvin Hagler's jab was never spectacular in the classic sense, but that's exactly where its strength lay. Authoritative, sharp, and uncompromising, he constantly interrupted his opponent's rhythm. As one of the best southpaws of his time, Hagler used the jab primarily from the southpaw stance, where it was particularly effective and hard to read. Hagler could fight from both stances, but his left jab as a southpaw was a central tool. He used it to control the opponent, close gaps, and build pressure without opening himself up. This jab was not a show element, but a working punch, constant, precise, and taxing over many rounds. A trademark was his forward springing, almost pushing jab. With it, he covered distances surprisingly quickly and put opponents under immediate stress. By repeatedly doubling and tripling the jab, he took away their rhythm, forced them to retreat, and prepared his heavy combinations. How do you react to a jab that doesn't shine but wears you down? And how do you counter when every rhythm is constantly broken? Precisely these questions made Marvin Hagler's jab so effective. Top 7. Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali's jab was completely different from anything heavyweight boxing had known until then. Fast, loose, and almost playful, it came from angles his opponents weren't used to. For heavy boxers, it was unusual to be kept at bay by a jab that was faster than their own thoughts. Ali used his jab not just to score points, but to control fights. He doubled and tripled it, disrupted the opponent's rhythm, and thereby set up his right hand. The jab often came from a low hand position, which made it extremely hard to read. Precisely this unpredictability made it so effective. This jab was the foundation of his entire style. It allowed Ali to dance, keep distance, and let opponents punch frustratedly into thin air. Instead of raw power, he relied on speed, timing, and intelligence. Every jab was a message. You don't get close to me unless I want you to. How do you hit an opponent who is faster than you? And how do you break a rhythm based on pure talent and precision? Muhammad Ali's jab answered these questions even before the opponent could ask them. 7 boxers, 7 completely different jabs, but they all had one thing in common: control. The jab was not just a punch, but a tool to dominate fights and shape careers. If you like this analysis, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and write in the comments. Whose jab is the best of all time for you?